My daughter squeezed my wrist under the white tablecloth and whispered, "Mom, he hits me very day." Across the room, 72 people raised champagne glasses beneath the gold lights off a private dining room on the 51st floor of a Manhattan tower. The windows showed the city glittering below us like somebody had spilled diamonds across black velvet. Men in tailored suits laughed too loudly. Women in silk dresses tilted their heads toward power. Waiters moved like shadows between orchids, crystal, and plates that cost more than some families spent on groceries in a week. At the head of the table stood Grant Holloway, my daughter's fiancé. He looked perfect. That was the worst part. Grant had the kind of face wealthy people trusted before he even opened his mouth. Clean jaw, silver watch. Warm smile. Eyes that never stayed in one place long enough to be honest. He lifted his glass toward me as if I were a queen and not a widow he had spent months trying to corner. "To Margaret Whittaker," he said, his voice rich and smooth. "A remarkable woman. A mother who raised the most extraordinary person I have ever known." The room applauded. My sister dabbed at her eyes. Grant's partners nodded. His mother smiled like she had produced a prince. I lifted my glass too. My daughter, Claire, kept squeezing my wrist. Her hand was cold. Her engagement ring pressed against me skin like a tiny weapon. She was sitting beside me in an ivory dress, her makeup flawless, her posture elegant, her mouth shaped into the kind of smile women learn when terror is in the room and leaving would make it worse. "He said if I leave," she whispered, staring straight ahead, "he'll take your beach house, your accounts, everything. Dad left us. He said he already has people ready to prove you're losing your mind." I kept smiling at Grant. A woman who spent 35 years as an international trade attorney does not collapse in a room full of predators. She breathes. She listens. She remembers every word. Then she decides where to put the knife. I turned my glass slightly so the candlelight caught the rim. "Don't react," I whispered. "Not yet." Claire's fingers trembled. "I can't do this anymore." "I know," I said. "Tonight, you smile. Tomorrow, web again." Grant's eyes found mine from across the table. He had no idea he had just declared war on the wrong mother. "My name is Margaret Whittaker. I am 64 years old. For most of my adult life, men underestimated me because I spoke quietly, wore pearls, and let them finish their sentences before I destroyed their arguments. My late husband, Thomas, used to say I had the patience of a judge and the memory of a prosecutor. He would know. He was a federal judge for 28 years. Thomas died 6 years before that dinner. After the funeral, I kept our house in Nantucket, a weathered gray shingle place with white trim, blue hydrangeas, and a kitchen where morning light still hit the floor the same way it did when he made coffee barefoot. I retired at 62, not because I was tired, but because I wanted the rest of my life to belong to me. Then Grant came into Claire's life. He appeared at Thanksgiving 14 months earlier, carrying a bottle of expensive Pinot Noir and a pie from a bakery nobody could get into without knowing somebody. He wore a navy sweater, helped me sister Diane with the dishes, asked me about Thomas as if he truly cared, and spoke to Claire with such tenderness that even I wanted to believe in him. Diane leaned close while Grant was in the kitchen and whispered, "Maggie, finally. She found a man who knows her worth." I said, "He seems very polished." Diane laughed. "That's your lawyer answer." It was. Polished is not the same as good. The first crack came 4 months later. Claire stopped calling me on Sunday mornings. Not entirely. She still called. But the calls shrank from 1 hour to 8 minutes, then 6, then 3. "I'm swamped, Mom. Grant and I are heading out. I'll call you later." Later became a place she never reached. The second crack came when Grant visited me in Nantucket on a Tuesday in April. He said he wanted to spend time with family. He brought wine, complimented my hydrangeas, and asked questions that sounded casual if you had never sat across from men who hid theft inside politeness. "Is the house still only in your name? Have you updated your trust since Judge Whittaker passed? Do you ever worry about managing everything alone? Have you thought about selling while the market is hot?" He said all this while admiring the ocean view. I said very little. That is another thing men like Grant mistake for weakness. At Christmas, Claire came home with a bruise near her collarbone. She wore a green cashmere sweater that kept slipping just enough for me to see the yellow edge of it. "What happened?" I asked. Grant answered before she could. "She fell on the ice outside our building," he said, putting his hand on the back of her neck. "She's stubborn. Won't let me help her, even when she needs it." Claire laughed too fast. After that, Grant began mentioning my memory. At first, he did it softly. "Maggie, you already told us that story." I had not. Then at dinner with Diane. "I worry about her being alone in that big house." Then directly to me. "Have you considered a neurological evaluation? Just a baseline. Nothing dramatic." My family doctor knows an excellent specialist. He was building a story. I had seen men build stories before. In courtrooms. In contracts. In boardrooms where they wanted a woman declared emotional, confused, unstable, difficult. A story is how people steal what they cannot take by force. The widow. The beach house. The daughter under control. The doctor willing to sign a report. Then my bank called. Someone had tried to reset the password in my investment account from an unknown device. The system blocked it. A week later, it happened again. Then a third time. 3 attempts in 6 weeks. The bank's security officer. No, I said. But I knew exactly who had been asking family questions. I began keeping a notebook. Not feelings of facts. Dates. Bruises. Odd phrases. Financial questions. Missed calls. King voice. By the time I sat in that Manhattan dining room with champagne in my hand and my daughter's fingers digging into my wrist, I already had one half-built case in my purse. Claire gave me the other half with 7 words. Mom, he hits me every day. Grant continued his toast. She is the kind of woman, he said, looking at Claire, who makes a man want to be better. Terumsite. Claire stared at her plate. I watched Grant's hand slide possessively over her shoulder. I thought of Thomas. I thought of the night our daughter was born. When he held her like she was the first sunrise any human being had ever seen. I thought of the little girl who used to run across our Nantucket lawn with bare feet and tangled hair, yelling for me to watch her cartwheel. I thought of every time I told her she was safe. Then I set my glass down without making a sound. A battle is decided before anybody raises their voice. Grant thought the battle would happen later, in private. When Claire was isolated and I was alone. He was wrong. By 5:10 the next morning, I was awake in my suite at the Carlisle, wearing a robe, reading glasses, and the calmest rage off my life. I wrote everything down in a yellow legal pad. Claire's words. The bruise at Christmas. His questions about my trust. His hand on her neck. At 5:45, I called Raymond Pierce, my personal attorney and one of the few men alive who knew better than to ask whether I was sure. Maggie, he said, voice rough with sleep. Somebody better be dead. Not yet. He went silent. I need a full background on Grant Holloway, I said. Civil suits, debts, licensing issues, past addresses, business entities, women connected to those addresses, police reports, sealed motions if you can legally reach them, and anything involving elder capacity or guardianship. How fast? Before Saturday. That is 3 days. I know. He exhaled. How bad? He's beating Claire and planning to come after him. The line changed. Raymond's sleep disappeared. I'll make calls. At 6:20, I called Denise Carter, a forensic accountant who had once found $11 million hidden behind 4 shell companies and a dead man's fake charity. I need to know how broke Grant Holloway really is, I said. People like him are never broke on paper, Denise replied. That's why I called you. I'll be in New York by tonight. At 7:12, there was a knock on my hotel room door. Claire stood there in jeans, a gray sweater, and namacup. Without the ivory dress and engagement ring staged under chandeliers, she looked younger. Not young. Wounded young. Like something inside her had been forced to hide in a dark room too long. She stepped inside and closed the door. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she said, if I start talking, I don't know if I'll stop. Then don't stop. She sat on the edge of the bed and told me. Grant had not become cruel all at once. Men like him rarely do. First, he was protective. He said her friends used her. He said her job at the nonprofit underpaid her because she didn't understand her own value. He said her apartment was unsafe and she should move into his place. They had nothing to hide. Then Hester did correcting her. Not yelling. Not at first. The blue dress makes you look tired. Your mother controls you. You talk too much when you're nervous. You're lucky I'm patient. The first time he shoved her, he cried afterward. Real tears, she said. He dropped to his knees in their kitchen, pressed his forehead to her hands, and said his father had taught him anger before love. He said he hated himself. He said she was the only person who made him feel human. She stayed. I do not say that with judgment. Any woman who judges another woman for staying has never been slowly trained to believe leaving is the dangerous part. The second time, there were no tears. The third time, he told her not to make him into a monster. By month 8, he was checking her phone while she slept. By month 10, he had convinced her that I was becoming forgetful. He said you were too proud to admit it, Claire whispered. He said Dad's death broke something in you and I was too emotional to see it. I sat very still. He said he had a doctor who could help file an emergency petition if you became a danger to yourself, she continued. He said once we were married, he could protect the family assets from your bad decisions. What assets? Her eyes filled. The Nantucket house, your investment accounts. Dad's judicial pension. Everything. And if you left him? He said he'd make it look like I was unstable. Like I was trying to manipulate an aging mother for money. She rubbed her wrist where a faint bruise darkened the skin. He said he had texts. Recordings. Things I said when I was scared. Did he hit you last night? She looked down. Not at dinner. Before. In the car. I told him I wasn't feeling well and wanted to postpone the wedding. He smiled at the driver like nothing happened, then grabbed my arm so hard I couldn't breathe. He said if I embarrassed him, he'd bury us both. The lawyer in me wrote down buried us both. The mother in me wanted to drive a steak knife through his hand. I did neither. Claire, I said, I need you to listen carefully. You are going to do exactly 3 things today. First, you are not going back to his apartment alone. Second, you are going to give Raymond permission to speak to your doctor and retrieve medical records. Third, you are going to act, for 72 more hours, like nothing has changed. Her face crumpled. I don't know if I can. You can because I will be with you every second you need me. But we need evidence. Not whispers. Not bruises he can explain away. Evidence. She wiped her face with both hands. You already have a plan. I have the beginning of one. What if he hurts you? I smiled for the first time that morning. Baby, men like Grant don't scare women like me. They annoy us into precision. The next 3 days became the kind of work I knew how to do. Raymond's team found Grant's first lie by noon. Grant Holloway was not a partner at the private investment firm he bragged about. He was a senior client advisor with a suspended promotion, under internal review for irregular referral practices. The phrase was polite enough to appear meaningless. In finance, polite phrases often carry handcuffs behind them. By 4 o'clock, Denise found the debt. Credit cards. Near their limits. A private loan past due. A failed real estate investment in Miami. Affluent investor demanding repayment. A line of credit secured with collateral he no longer fully controlled. By midnight, she had a number. Roughly 2.4 million, she told me over the phone. Maybe more if he has off-book obligations. Why target Claire? Because she looks like stability, Denise said. And because you look like liquidity. Raymond found 4 addresses in 7 years. At 3 of them, Grant had lived with women. One was a marketing executive in Boston. One was a surgeon in Chicago. One was a divorced hotel heiress in Miami. The surgeon had filed a police report after an incident in a parking garage. She withdrew it 5 days later. The heiress had sued him privately, then settled under seal. The marketing executive would not speak at first. Then Raymond said my daughter's name. She called me herself. Her name was Leah Monroe, and her voice sounded like someone still checking windows. He told me his mother was sick, Leah said. He said he needed temporary access to funds for her treatment. I lent him 180,000. Then he said I was embarrassing him by asking questions. Did he hurt you? The pause answered before she did. He never hit me in the face. I closed my eyes. Women say sentences like that when the world has forced them to create categories of injury. Would you be willing to make a statement? I asked. I signed something. An NDA? Yes. An NDA does not protect criminal conduct. Another pause. Then Leah said, send me your attorney's number. By Friday morning, my bank had completed its internal report. 3 unauthorized attempts to access my investment account. The device location matched a building 2 blocks from Grant's office. That alone would not prove everything, but it would force questions. Then my CPA called. Maggie, she said, a man claiming Tobe from your legal team requested 3 years of your tax returns. When? Last week. They didn't need it because he failed verification. Did he give a name? He said his name was Daniel Cross. I wrote it down. Raymond found Daniel Cross in 18 minutes. He was a physician assistant at a boutique psychiatric practice in Greenwich, Connecticut. He had treated Grant's mother 2 years earlier. He also had a side business preparing family capacity consultations for high net worth guardianship petitions. By Friday afternoon, Raymond obtained a copy of a preliminary intake request sent to that practice 7 months earlier. Subject, female relative, 64, possible cognitive decline, resistant to evaluation. I was 64. Grant had been rehearsing my incompetence before Claire ever whispered the truth. He did not plan to marry my daughter and then become greedy. He chose her because he was already desperate. He had studied our family, our grief, our assets, our soft places. He had looked at my daughter and seen an entrance. He had looked at me and seen a locked vault with an old woman standing in front of it. He had mistaken the lock for the guard. Saturday morning, Claire signed medical releases. The records came back uglier than I expected. A fractured rib 9 months earlier. a shoulder contusion, a wrist sprain, a concussion described as fall in bathroom. She had gone to urgent care alone, each time repeating the explanation Grant gave her. Accidents. Clumsiness. Stress. Nothing to report. I read each record at my hotel desk with my hands folded. Then I went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and let myself cry for 90 seconds. Only 90. After that, I washed my face, put on lipstick, and returned to the war. That night, there was another dinner. Grant had arranged it as a family celebration before the wedding announcements went public. Same tower. Same 51st floor dining room. Same orchids and crystal. A tighter guest list this time. Though still 72 people because Grant believed numbers created gravity. His investors would be there. His mother. My sister. Claire's cousins. A retired judge who had served with Thomas. 2 partners from Grant's firm. A society columnist. 3 people Grant needed to impress. And 1 woman he thought he had already scared into silence. Before leaving for the restaurant, I opened my jewelry case and took out Thomas's pearls. He had bought them for me after my first Supreme Court argument, even though it was not actually before the Supreme Court, just a federal appellate panel he teased me about for years. You looked like you were going to eat those men alive, he had said. I wore them that night. Claire stood in my sweet doorway wearing a black dress this time, simple and elegant. No ivory. No softness for him. Her left wrist was covered with a bracelet. Her engagement ring was in my safe. Are you ready? I asked. No good, I said. Ready is overrated. Brave is enough. She took my hand. Outside, Raymond's people were already moving. Denise had prepared 72 cream envelopes. Each contained a 2-page executive summary, not emotional, not dramatic, not easy to dismiss. Grant Holloway, undisclosed debt exposure. Prior civil complaints. Bank access attempts. False. Request for tax records. Capacity consultation inquiry. Medical chronology for Claire Whitaker. Potential financial exploitation and coercive control. At the bottom of each packet was a QR code linking to a secure folder Raymond controlled, with supporting documents available to named recipients only. No rumors. No shouting. Evidence. But I added one more thing. A single photograph of Claire at age 7, standing on the Nantucket porch in a yellow raincoat, holding a dead hydrangea stem like a sword. Thomas had written on the back, "Our girl does not know how to surrender." Grant greeted us at the restaurant with open arms. "Maggie," he said, kissing my cheek. "You look stunning. Important nights deserve effort." His eyes moved to Claire. He noticed the missing ring. His smile flickered, then recovered. "Sweetheart," he said, reaching for her hand. Claire let him touch her fingers for 1 second, then pulled away to greet his mother. He watched him absorb that. Men like Grant notice ownership shifts before anyone else does. Dinner began. Grant performed beautifully. He told a story about meeting Claire at a charity auction. He made his mother laugh. He complimented Diane's dress. He asked our tired judge about judicial temperament. He spoke to one of his firm's partners about long-term family stewardship, which nearly made me admire his nerve. I let him speak for 57 minutes. There is power in allowing a liar to become comfortable. When the main course was cleared, Grant stood and tapped his knife against his glass. Before he could begin, I stood too. The room turned. Grant smiled as if indulging an elderly woman. "I promise I'll be brief," I said. He placed one hand lightly on the back of his chair. "Maggie, I was about to make a toast." "I know." The smile thinned. I looked at the 72 faces around the table. "Before Grant speaks, I'd like everyone to look beneath your charger plate. You will find a cream envelope. Please open it." For the first time since I met him, Grant looked genuinely surprised. The sound of 72 envelopes sliding against linen was quiet at first. Then sharper. Paper tearing. Chairs shifting. Someone inhaling too loudly. Grant's mother frowned down at the first page. One of his partners stopped chewing his ice. Diane looked at me, confused, then afraid. Grant did not open his envelope. He looked at Claire. "Sit down," he said softly. She did not. That was when I knew we would win. "What you have in front of you," I said, "is a documented summary of who Grant Holloway is, what he has done, and what he intended to do to my daughter and to me." Grant laughed once. It was ugly because it was forced. "This is absurd," he said. "Maggie has been under a great deal of stress. We've all been concerned about her." There it was. Right on cue. I turned to him. "Concerned about my memory?" His eyes hardened. "About your well-being." I nodded. "That's the story you paid Daniel Cross to help you build, correct?" The retired judge lowered his packet. Grant's mother whispered, "What?" I continued. 7 months ago, A preliminary inquiry was made to a psychiatric practice in Greenwich regarding a 64-year-old female relative with alleged cognitive decline who was resistant to evaluation. I am 64. I have never met Daniel Cross. I have never consented to such an inquiry. Grant, however, has spent months asking me about my trust, my home, my investments, and whether I live alone. Grant's face changed. Not much. But enough. His mask did not fall. It tightened. Maggie, he said, you are embarrassing yourself. I smiled. I spent 35 years negotiating with men who said that when they ran out of facts. Someone at the far table made a small sound that might have been a laugh if fear had not swallowed it. Grant turned to the room. This is a family misunderstanding, he said. Claire has been emotional lately, and Maggie has been feeding that instability. Claire stepped forward. No, the word was not loud. It did not need to be. Grant's head snapped toward her. Claire. No, she repeated. You don't get to use that voice here. His hand closed around the chair back. I could see the calculation in him. Too many witnesses. Too many envelopes. Too many phones face up on the table now. Claire looked at the guests. He hits me, she said. He has hit me for almost 3 years. The room went still in a way no expensive room is ever supposed to go still. No silverware. No glasses. No breath. He fractured my rib 9 months ago, she said. He sprained my wrist. He gave me a concussion and made me tell urgent care I slept in the bathroom. When I tried to leave, he told me he would destroy my mother. He said he would have her declared incompetent, take control of her assets, and make me look like the unstable daughter manipulating a widow. Grant moved one step toward her. You are hysterical. I raised 2 fingers. From the side door, 2 private security officers stepped into view. Behind them stood Denise, Raymond, and Leah Monroe. Grant saw Leah and went white. Leah had been the woman in Boston. The one who once never got hit in the face. She wore a dark green suit, no jewelry, and the expression of a woman who had spent years waiting to stand where he could not silence her. Grant whispered, You can't behere. Leah looked at Claire, not him. Yes, I can. Grant's mother covered her mouth. One of his firm partners stood slowly. Grant, he said, is any of this connected to internal review? Grant turned on him. Sit down, Ellen. Ellen did not sit. That was when Raymond stepped forward with his phone in hand. Mr. Holloway, he said, as of 8:12 tonight, your firm's general counsel has received a preservation notice regarding documents, communications, client referrals, outside loans, and any discussions involving Margaret Whittaker's assets or capacity. The bank fraud unit has also received the unauthorized access report. Grant's eyes flicked to me. You think you can ruin me? No, I said. I think you did most of the work yourself. His laugh came out broken. You have no idea what she's done, he said, pointing at Claire. She begged me to help her. She told me her mother was slipping. She told me she couldn't handle family money. I have messages. I know, I said. He blinked. I know about the messages, I continued. The ones you forced her to send. The ones you dictated while standing over her. The ones where she sounds panicked and confused because you had just hurt her. Claire looked at me. I had not told her everything yet. I turned to Grant. You recorded her, but you forgot you were also being recorded. His mouth opened slightly. 3 weeks ago, I said, Claire left her phone recording in your kitchen after you threatened to file a petition against me. You told her exactly how you planned to use my age, Thomas's death, and your doctor friend to make me look incompetent. You told her nobody would believe a woman who had fallen down 3 times. You told her wives learn faster when they stop embarrassing their husbands. The room seemed to contract around him. Grant looked at Claire with such hatred that every person at that table finally saw him. Claire did not look away. Raymond said, that recording has been preserved and delivered to counsel. A petition for an order of protection was filed this afternoon. Claire will not return to your apartment. Her belongings have been removed. Any attempt to contact her outside counsel will be documented. Grant's mother stood. Grant, she said, voice shaking. Tell me this is not true. He turned toward her, and for one terrible second, I saw the child inside the monster. Not innocence. Just fury at being exposed in front of the first woman he had ever learned to manipulate. Mom, he said, don't. She stepped back. That broke him more than my evidence did. He lunged, not at Claire, not at me, but toward the side door where Raymond stood with the phone. Security stopped him before he crossed 6 feet. The room erupted. A glass fell, someone cursed. Claire flinched, then steadied herself. I moved beside her, but I did not take her hand. This moment belonged to her. She had been dragged through fear for too long. I would not drag her through rescue. Grant struggled once, then realized the entire room was watching. Phones were out now. Not recording for gossip. Recording for survival. He straightened his jacket. This is defamation, he said. Leah spoke for the first time. No, Grant. This is pattern. He turned toward her. You signed an agreement. And you broke the law. Alan, the firm partner, picked up his envelope and stepped away from the table as if distance could save him from contamination. Grant, he said, you need counsel. Grant laughed again, but no one followed him in toit. There are moments when power leaves a room. Not dramatically. Not with thunder. It drains through the floorboards. A man who was untouchable 5 minutes earlier becomes just a man in a suit, surrounded by documents, witnesses, and the women he taught each other how to fear him. I looked at Claire. Ready to go? She nodded. We walked out together. Behind us, the room filled with voices, Grant's mother crying, Alan calling someone from legal, Diane saying my name over and over, Raymond giving calm instructions, security telling Grant to step back. In the elevator, Claire stared at our reflection. My pearls. Her black dress. Our pale faces under warm elevator lights. Is it over? She asked. The part where we pretend is over. She swallowed. What comes next? The part where we survive out loud. The months after that dinner were not beautiful. People like to think liberation arrives like sunlight. It does not. Sometimes it arrives as paperwork, court dates, panic at 3 in the morning, and a grown daughter. Sleeping with the hallway light on. Grant tried everything. First, he claimed the envelopes were fabricated. Then he claimed I was mentally unstable. Then he claimed Claire was vindictive because he had ended the engagement. Then he claimed Leah was extorting him. Then the recording became part of the court file. He stopped claiming Somic after that. The order of protection was granted. Grant contested it. He lost. His firm suspended him pending investigation. 2 clients came forward saying he had pressured them into private investments that did not match official firm records. The private lender filed suit. The Miami deal collapsed into discovery. His license was placed under review. The psychiatric practice denied wrongdoing, then quietly terminated Daniel Cross. Daniel, eager not to burn alone, produced emails. Grant had not acted alone. He had approached a small circle of professionals who specialized in separating wealthy older women from their autonomy. A doctor willing to suggest cognitive decline. A financial advisor willing to manage liquidity. A lawyer willing to draft emergency petitions. Grant had been preparing to turn my life into a case file I never got Toriad. Raymond sent me the email chain with a warning. Do not read this alone. I read it alone anyway. There was my name. Margaret Whitaker, 64. Widow. Significant coastal property. Daughter emotionally dependent. Potential resistance expected, potential resistance. That was what they called me. I made tea after reading it. I remember that clearly. Chamomile. Thomas's old blue mug. My hands did not shake until the kettle clicked off. For 3 minutes, I stood in my kitchen in Nantucket and imagined strangers. Discussing my mind as if it were a door they could force open. Then Claire came downstairs wearing one of Thomas's old sweaters, saw my face, and took the papers from me hand. She read only the first page. Oh God, she whispered. I expected her to break. Instead, she said, I want to testify. I looked at her. You don't have to. I know. Her voice shook, but it did not bend. That's why I want to. The hearing happened in a courthouse in Lower Manhattan on a rainy Thursday. Grant arrived with 2 attorneys and no mother. I arrived with Raymond, Denise, Leah, Claire, and the retired judge who had served with Thomas. He did not testify to facts he did not know. He testified Tomini. Margaret Whitaker, he said, had argued complex international matters with precision. She had managed trusts, property, and charitable boards after her husband's death. She was not confused. She was not dependent. She was being targeted. The doctor's office tried to distance itself. Daniel Cross tried to become a victim of misunderstanding. Grant's attorney tried to paint Claire as fragile. That was his mistake. Claire took the stand in a navy dress and told the truth without decoration. She did not make Grant a demon. She made him worse. She made him real. She described the first shove, the apologies, the isolation, the financial questions, the threats. She described the night he fractured her rib and then slept beside her like nothing had happened. She described sending texts he dictated because she was afraid he would hurt her again. She described whispering to me under the table while 72 people applauded the man who had trained her to smile through pain. Grant stared at the table the entire time. When his attorney asked why she stayed, the courtroom tightened. Claire looked at him and said, because leaving was the thing he threatened me for most. No one spoke for several seconds after that. The judge granted the extension of the protective order. The financial exploitation investigation continued. Grant's attorneys stopped smiling in hallways. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Not many. Enough. The society columnist from the dinner had not published gossip, but someone from the finance world had leaked the suspension. A headline had appeared that morning about a Manhattan advisor accused in coercion and elder fraud scheme. Grant tried to rush past the cameras. Leah stopped beside Claire. "You did it," she said. Claire shook her head. "Wedded." Leah cried then. Quietly. Embarrassed by it. Claire hugged her. I stood under my umbrella and watched two women who once thought they were alone hold each other in front of a courthouse that had finally learned their names. That was the first good moment, not happy. Good. There is a difference. Claire came to Nantucket with me for the summer. First, she slept badly. She woke at every sound. A door closing too hard made her go still. A man's voice on television made her leave the room. She apologized. For everything. Sorry I used the last lemon. Sorry I forgot to start the dishwasher. Sorry I'm being weird. Sorry I'm not better yet. One morning I put my hands on both sides of her face and said, Claire, if you apologize one more time for being alive in me house, I am going to make pancakes and cry into them. She laughed. It was small and rusty. But it was laughter. We built routines. Coffee on the porch at 6:30. Walks. To the beach at 7. Therapy on Tuesdays and Fridays. No phones at dinner. No conversations about Grant after 9 p.m. She started cooking again in July. Nothing dramatic. Scrambled eggs first. Then soup. Then one night, she made Thomas's old tomato pasta and cried because she burned the garlic. I ate 2 bowls and told her it was perfect. It's bitter, she said. So are we, I replied. Still edible. She laughed harder that time. In August, Grant was indicted on charges connected to financial fraud, identity-related bank access attempts, and conspiracy to pursue fraudulent capacity proceedings. The domestic violence charges moved separately. Leah testified. So did the surgeon from Chicago, who had found out about the case and called Raymond herself. There were more of them. More women. More debts. More lies. Grant had not been a storm that hit our family by chance. He was a weather system. He moved from woman to woman, city to city, story to story, always choosing someone with money near them, grief near them, or love he could weaponize. The Miami heiress broke her settlement silence after prosecutors contacted her. Grant's mother came to see me in September. I almost refused, then curiosity won. She arrived in Nantucket wearing sunglasses though the sky was cloudy. Her name was Vivian Holloway, and without the Manhattan lighting she looked less like royalty and more like an exhausted woman who had spent too long polishing a family name full of cracks. We sat on the porch. Claire chose not to join us. Vivian held a cup of coffee she did not drink. I didn't know all of it, she said. I looked at the ocean, that is a careful sentence. She flinched. I knew he could be hard, she admitted. Demanding. Controlling. His father was difficult. Did you know he hurt women? Her lips pressed together. That is also an answer, I said. She began to cry. I did not comfort her. I am not cruel by nature. But I had spent enough of my life watching women in expensive clothes ask other people to absorb the consequences of what they refused to name. My husband taught him that weakness deserved punishment, Vivian said. I tried to soften him. You protected him. She closed her eyes. Yes. The ocean moved below us, gray and endless. Why are you here? I asked. She reached into her handbag and removed a folder. Because Grant asked me to move money before the freeze. He wanted me to hide $300,000 in a family account. I didn't. I brought the emails. Vivian Holloway, who had smiled like a queen at the dinner, handed me the thing that helped prosecutors prove Grant knew his financial world was collapsing before he targeted mine. I took the folder. Why now? She looked toward the house. Because I saw your daughter stand up in that room, and I realized I had spent 38 years sitting down. I wanted to hate her. Part of me still did. But truth is a strange animal. Sometimes it arrives late, filthy, and limping. You can refuse to open the door, but then you lose what it carries. I gave the folder to Raymond. By November, Grant accepted a plea agreement on the financial charges. The domestic violence case continued because Claire refused to let that part be folded into numbers and signatures. She wanted the record to see what he had done to her body, not just what he had tried to do to our money. The day pleaded, he looked smaller. Not sorry. Small. He avoided Claire's eyes. Until the judge asked if he understood the terms. Then he glanced back once. I saw the old Grant there, the one who still wanted her to feel chosen by his attention or punished by his contempt. Claire did not blink. Afterward, we walked down the courthouse steps into hard winter sunlight. A reporter asked Claire if she felt vindicated. Claire paused. I worried she would freeze. Instead, she said, vindicated sounds too clean. I feel free enough to be angry, and that's a start. That clip went everywhere. Women wrote to her. Some strangers. Some from our own social circle. Some from towns we had never heard of. They said they had stayed too. They said they had whispered once and nobody listened. They said they were leaving now. They said they were gathering papers. They said they had hidden copies of keys, bank statements, medical records, photographs. Claire read every message for 2 weeks. Then she put her phone down and said, I don't want my whole life to be about him. It won't be, I said. How do you know? Because I refuse to let a man that boring get a legacy in this family. She laughed so loudly the dog next door started barking. By spring, Claire rented a small cottage 6 blocks from my house. Sage green walls. White curtains. A blue front door. A lock only she controlled. She planted basil in the kitchen window and hydrangeas by the porch even though I told her hydrangeas need patience. I'm learning patience, she said. Her Sunday calls returned. At first, they were check-ins. Then they became real again. She complained about the grocery store running out of oat milk. She told me about a woman in therapy group who made terrible brownies. She asked for Thomas's pasta recipe even though she already had it. She called once just to say she had slept 7 hours without waking up. I cried after that call. Not during. Mothers learn timing too. In May, she invited me over for dinner. It was the first time she hosted anything since leaving Grant. There were 5 people, me, Diane, Leah, the surgeon from Chicago whose name was Priya, and Vivian Holloway. Claire had invited Vivian without telling me. When I saw Vivian on the porch holding flowers, I nearly turned around. Claire touched my arm. She gave the emails, she said. I know. And she asked if she could apologize without being forgiven. That stopped me. Inside, Claire had set the table with mismatched plates from a thrift store. No orchids. No crystal. No men performing kindness under chandeliers. Just candles, pasta, salad, bread slightly too dark at the edges, and 5 women sitting in a cottage by the sea with the windows open. Vivian apologized. Not dramatically. She did not ask Claire to understand Grant's childhood, she did not mention his father as an excuse. She said, I helped create a world where He believed consequences were optional. I am sorry. Claire nodded. I don't forgive you yet. Vivian's eyes filled. Thank you for saying yet. Dinner was awkward. Then, it became less awkward. Then Diane spilled wine, Leah laughed, Priya told a story about breaking a hospital vending machine with a stethoscope, and Claire smiled in a way that made my chest hurt. Later, while Diane and Leah argued about dessert, Claire and I stood in the porch. The ocean was dark. Her blue door glowed behind us. Do you ever miss who you thought he was? I asked. She took a long time to answer. Yes, she said. But I think what I really miss is who I got to be before I was afraid. I looked at her. That woman is not gone. She feels gone. No, I said. She is standing here with a mortgage application, basil, and burned bread, telling the truth on her own porch. Claire leaned her head against my shoulder. I thought you'd be ashamed of me. That one nearly took my breath. Claire. I know it sounds stupid. It sounds like something he planted. She nodded. The waves moved below us. I was never ashamed of you, I said. Not for 1 second. I was angry he hurt you. I was angry I didn't see enough soon enough. I was angry the world teaches women to explain bruises before it teaches people to question the men standing beside them. But ashamed? No. She cried then. Not like the first morning in the hotel. Not like court. This was different. This was grief leaving a room it had rented too long. I held her until she stopped. A year after the Manhattan dinner, Grant was sentenced. Not as long as some people wanted, longer than he expected. That mattered more. The judge referenced the financial scheme, the abuse of trust, the attempt to exploit age and grief, and the coordinated effort to undermine a woman's legal autonomy. Claire chose not to read a victim statement in court. She had written one, then changed her mind the night before. I didn't want to give him my voice again, she told me. So Raymond submitted it in writing. Grant never heard her read it. That was her final refusal. After sentencing, I went back to Nantucket alone. Claire wanted to spend the afternoon at her cottage. I understood, freedom needs private rooms. I made coffee and took it onto the porch. The hydrangeas were beginning to bloom. The ocean was silver. Thomas's chair sat beside mine, empty but not lonely anymore. For a long time, I had believed my job as a mother was to keep Claire from pain. That is what nobody tells you when they hand you a baby, you will fail at that job. The world will find doors you did not know you left unlocked, people will arrive wearing charm like a clean shirt. They will speak gently. They will learn your child's fears. They will use love as a leash. You cannot stop every storm. But you can become the place your child runs to when the storm finally has a name. That evening, Claire came over with a paper bag of groceries and dirt on her knees from planting hydrangeas. I think I killed one already, she said. Impossible. Very dramatic. Not dead. She put the groceries on the counter and looked around. The kitchen. Do you ever think about that dinner? Yes. Do you regret waiting? It hot of the first night, her wrist under my hand, Grant's champagne raised high, 72 people applauding a lie. I regret that you had to whisper, I said. I do not regret making sure that when we finally spoke, the whole room had to listen. Claire nodded, then she opened the refrigerator like she had done when she was 12 and said, Do you have anything real to eat? I laughed. That sound surprised me. Not because I had forgotten how to laugh, but because it came from somewhere clean. We made dinner together. Nothing elegant. Eggs, toast, tomatoes, too much salt. We ate standing at the kitchen island while the sun went down. She told me about a class she wanted to take, ceramics, maybe. Or photography. Something with hands. Something that did not involve explaining herself. Before she left, she paused at the door. Mom? Yes? That night in the elevator, you said the pretending part was over. I remember. I think you were right. Then she smiled. Not bravely. Not carefully. Just smiled. After she drove away, I stood on the porch until her taillights disappeared past the dunes. I sometimes think about Grant. Not with rage. Rage is expensive, and I have better things to fund. I think about what he saw and what he missed. He saw a widow with money. He saw a daughter trained by love to protect people. He saw a beach house, investment accounts, legal documents, and grief he believed had made me soft. He saw age and mistook it for weakness. He saw silence and mistook it for surrender. What he did not see was 35-year soft courtrooms, contracts, liars, and men who smiled while hiding knives. He did not see Thomas in every room of this house, reminding me to stay steady. He did not see the little girl in the yellow raincoat who never learned how to surrender. He did not see that a mother can sit through a toast, lift a glass, and smile beautifully while memorizing every exit. My daughter is free. My house is still mine. My mind is clear. And no man will ever again mistake our silence for a place to hide.